Okay, well, welcome everybody. I am Councillor Glenn Gower, and thanks to everyone who's joining us today. Today we're looking at Extendicare's site plan proposal for a new long-term care home in Stittsville. The address is 2510 Wellings. That's actually right on Hazeldean Road next to the existing Wellings building. There's a lot of people who are joining us on our panel today, lots of people to answer questions as they come in. I did want to welcome from the City of Ottawa, Kathy Rigas is with us, so she'll be available as a resource to answer questions. And I'll introduce in just a second Rebecca and her team from Extendicare. But before we get going, if you haven't been to one of these information meetings before, what's going to happen is we're going to have a presentation and overview from the Extendicare team, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions. And if you have a question that you'd like to ask, look for the Q&A panel on your Zoom screen, and you can type in a question, and then I'll direct those to different people who are on this call so we can have a Q&A session at the end. And same thing if you're watching on Facebook, you can use the comments on Facebook to ask a question. Now, we are recording this, so we'll be putting it up on YouTube as well to have as an archive. And I'm just looking at our participants list. Want to say welcome to John Curry from the Community Voice, who's tuning today as well. So without further ado, I'd like to hand things over to Rebecca from the Extendicare team, and I'll let her introduce some of the other folks who are on the call today. Rebecca, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Councillor Gower, and so pleased to virtually, I guess, see everybody. We're really very excited to speak to you about this project that we're hoping to get underway soon. And we do have a number of folks on the line from Extendicare. So I will just ask them to wave when I see say their name, because I know there are a number of folks. So from Extendicare, we have Joelle Koo, who's with our development team. We also have Peter McConaughey, one of our project managers from our development team. From our architects, we've got Santiago Kunsel from Montgomery Sizem, as well as Leslie Parker from Montgomery Sizem. With our planners, our planning group, FOTEN, we have Brian Casagrande and Bria Ayers. And also from Extendicare, we have Clayton Donnelly. And Clayton is the administrator at our Extendicare West End Villa location. So I'm just having a look at my screen, and I think that covers everybody from our team. So, Councillor, would you like me to just dive in on the presentation?
Yes, absolutely. The floor is yours.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. So, as I said, very pleased to talk to you a little bit about our plan. We have presented this before and actually had our site plan approved a couple of years ago, but we've decided to make some slight modifications. So wanted to come back and speak to the community again. And just in the interest of, I understand some of you may not be familiar with the organization or with the long-term care home that we do plan to build in Stittsville, I will just walk you through a little bit about our organization, and then I will turn it over to Santiago, who is our architect and can walk you through the design and the plan of the building. So first off, just a little bit about Extendicare. Extendicare has been in Ottawa. We actually started in Ottawa over 50 years ago, and we are one of the largest long-term care home operators in the country. We have 34 long-term care homes in Ontario and 58 homes that we operate across the country. We also operate retirement living communities. We have a large home care division through our ParaMed Home Healthcare division, and we also provide management and consulting services to other operators across the country, both in long-term care and in retirement. And certainly we are extraordinarily proud to be at the forefront of seniors care. We do work closely with our provincial and municipal partners across the country to provide very much needed services to seniors in long-term care and seniors in home care across the country. So a little bit more about us specifically in Ontario. We do employ nearly 10,000 people across the country, as I mentioned, in 34 long-term care homes. All of our long-term care homes are unionized, so we have collective agreements across all of those long-term care homes. Certainly our employees have made it their life's mission to provide excellent quality care to seniors in our homes. And certainly many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the particular challenges that we have been facing over the last number of months with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's been particularly difficult. This virus is very vicious, and it's been particularly challenging in long-term care homes. And I know that our homes in Ottawa have faced some particular challenges and suffered some tragic losses. And certainly our team members in the field are doing the absolute best that they can every day before COVID-19, and certainly throughout this entire pandemic, to provide high quality care to our residents. One of the things as well that you may have heard with regards to long-term care and COVID-19 is the challenges in long-term care homes that are older. The previous design standards for long-term care homes allocated that you could have 3 or 4 residents sharing a room. And certainly the buildings that we have in Ottawa are those older stock of buildings that were built before 1972. So we do have, in some cases, we did have 3 and 4 residents sharing a room. We have been working for many years to get the appropriate approvals that we need from the Ministry of Long-Term Care, the provincial government, as well as the city, to move forward so that we can upgrade those older buildings. And our new design standard, as I'll speak about in a moment, we only have 1 resident sharing a room. Or what, they're not even sharing, it's 1 resident who has their own private room. So certainly that is a significant improvement in the infection prevention and control. So that is one of the reasons why it's extraordinarily important for us that we can move forward with this project as soon as possible so that we can get our residents into those upgraded buildings. And a bit more of an overview of long-term care in Ontario. As I mentioned, we do need to get approval from the Ministry of Long-Term Care before we make any changes to our homes. All long-term care homes in Ontario are licensed through the Ministry of Long-Term Care. So every bed that we operate, we have to receive a license from the Ministry of Long-Term Care. Long-term care in Ontario is all publicly funded. So it's the care and services are publicly funded through the Ministry of Long-Term Care, and it's operated by a mix of operators. There are private operators like Extendicare. Some municipalities operate long-term care homes. Certainly, I know the City of Ottawa does. And then there are not-for-profit and charitable ownership as well. They are all regulated to the same standards. We all have the same design standards. We all have the same care standards. And we all fall under the Long-Term Care Homes Act and must meet the rules and regulations and guidelines in those standards. And we are regularly inspected to ensure that we meet those standards. So specifically about long-term care and Extendicare in Ottawa, as I said at the outset, we started in Ottawa actually in 1968. Our first building, New Orchard Lodge, is there. And we now have 5 buildings across the Ottawa region. And those buildings are home to a total of 976 residents. It is our plan to upgrade all of these buildings. As I mentioned, they are older buildings, and we want to upgrade them to new and modern design standards. So our ultimate plan is that we will, at the end of the upgrade of all of these buildings, we will have 4 upgraded buildings. And we will increase the resident capacity slightly by 48 beds. That's what we've applied to the ministry for. And the first project that we plan to move forward on is the one that we're speaking about today, and that's that project in Stittsville. So the next slide just shows you where our buildings are currently located. They're clustered there mostly in the West End, and we do plan to continue to stay in the West End, moving one of our buildings down to Stittsville, and then we will have the other buildings will be on the sites of our 3 of our other buildings in that West End location there. And the plan with this building is that all of our residents from our West End Villa location will move into this Stittsville building once it is completed. So I will just talk to you a little bit about the overview of the project. And then I said at the outset, I will turn it over to Santiago, our architect, who can speak in more detail to the updated site plan, our landscaping plan, and the architectural concept of the building. So just an overview of this project in Stittsville. It will be 4 stories. It will accommodate 256 residents, and it will have an enclosed courtyard. And again, Santiago will speak a little bit more about this, but to understand, the residents that live in long-term care generally have quite advanced care needs. That's why they move into long-term care in the first place. And in many circumstances, our residents may have advanced dementia. And so it's very important for us that they have a safe and enclosed place where they can access the outside in a contained area. So that's why we have a courtyard design, which Santiago will speak about in a minute. As I said before, we do need to get approval from the Ministry of Long Term Care before we can move forward with any projects. And there are a number of stages of approval. We've been working through that on this project for a number of years and are very pleased that we have achieved the full approval from the Ministry of Long Term Care for this project. So as I said at the outset, we did have our original site plan approved in 2017. That was approved by the city, and we've made some slight modifications to it, which is why we're coming to speak to you today and to get another approval for it. And just with regards to timeline, our goal is to break ground on this project next summer, so in the summer of 2021. And it usually takes us about 24 months to complete a building. So the goal would be to have it completed by the end of the summer in 2023, and then to have our residents start to move in the fall of 2023. And so with that overview of the organization and a brief overview of the project, I'll now turn it over to Santiago Kunzel, as I said, from our architects, who can walk us through a bit more of the site plan and the other aspects that we're here to speak about today. So Santiago, over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. My name is Santiago Kunzel. I'm principal and director at Montgomery Sysom Architects. I'm here with Leslie Parker today. And Montgomery Sysom Architects started working on long-term care in 1978. It's probably one of the firms that have most experience in long-term care in the country. I joined the firm in 1990, started working almost nonstop in long-term care. So we are very experienced in the field. What you see here, it's the proposed changes that we did to the site plan application that resulted in the first of the buildings on the site being built. And perhaps, Rebecca, if you can go to the next slide, which shows this in much larger so people can see better. Thank you. So you can see in the light blue shade, that is the Wellings, the retirement building that has been built now, is on the site. On the light green area is a portion of the site that Extendicare is given to the city in order to increase the recreational opportunity on the area, as well as to provide a significant natural buffer for the protection of the butternut trees that do exist in there. Another interesting thing to point about the site is that it has the existing vehicular entrance at the intersection, and that's going to be the only vehicular entrance to the site. Being a signalized intersection provides a good management of the traffic, and we think this is a good solution for our development. Now, moving on to the reconfiguration of the long-term care on this site, you can see the light blue outline of the new building. It's just labeled relocated building. You can see the building has been moved closer to the street. There used to be a retail component and business offices component proposed in that location along the street. That has been removed, and the building has moved closer to the street in there. And then the parking, which used to be located underneath the building, is now on the surface on behind the building. So you don't see the parking from the street. Another thing that we maintain from the previous application is a very, very significant landscape component between the two buildings that reaches out to Hazeldean as well. So that component has been maintained. The separation between the long-term care building and the retirement building has also been maintained. And another significant difference between the previous building and the new proposed building is that the landscape courtyard that is at the center of the building, instead of two small courtyards, is now a much larger singular courtyard for the residents of the facility. So that, in a nutshell, is the big changes from the previous application to this, and that is the building has moved closer to the street. and the parking has moved from below the building to surface parking on the back. Maybe if we can move to the next slide, Rebecca. So a little bit on the landscape plan, and you can see a little bit more detail on the site plan configurations. Do you see the building? It's closer to the street. The drop-off area is at the back using that singular vehicular entrance that brings the visitors around the retirement building and then aligns them onto the drop-off area of the existing building. The existing building is organized with all the common areas of the residents. Basically, it's the place where the residents come down and congregate on the ground floor, facing the drop-off area to the left. And then what you see, the balance of the building is where the resident bedrooms are located all around that landscape courtyard. You can clearly see there is a significant amount of landscaping on the parking as well. So the parking aisles have been separated with large green spaces in between. And then the very significant landscaping element in between the long-term care and the existing building with a stormwater management pond, with paths that connects the two buildings, connects all of the landscape features, connects it also to the sidewalk on Hazeldean, and as well as to the open park areas at the back. So we think that this is going to be a very exciting environment for our residents and visitors, because it provides for a lot of potential for walking around the building, engaging with the city sidewalk, or engaging with a more natural setting at the back. We think that it is an incredible opportunity for long-term care on this site, and particularly because it's also enhanced by the presence of the retirement building as well, to create a sense of campus, which we think is also very beneficial. Next. Here you see a rendition from the air, like almost like a bird's eye view of the campus. And you can see the Wellings on the left, the existing building there, the long-term care on the right, inside of the circle, the singular vehicular access to the site, and then the large natural areas at the back, and the significant landscape element with a stormwater management pond between the two buildings, and how that landscape component reaches out to Hazeldean and integrates with the city fabric. We think that this is an incredible opportunity for these two buildings to communicate through that landscape area, and perhaps create some synergies between the two, some programming that can happen on either building. Both residents from the retirement and the long-term care can benefit from. Again, as I mentioned, a singular shared vehicular entrance as a signalized intersection. That is very important to keep all the traffic orderly and to minimize disruption in the neighborhood. We are providing about double the amount of parking that the bylaw requires, so we don't think we're going to have a parking issue on this project. And also the removal of that component of retail and business offices will also decrease the traffic and trip generation to the site. So hopefully that gives you a good, nice overview about the relationship between the two buildings, the landscaping, how it's organized, and all the potential opportunities for walking that this site provides, either being engaging the city, walking internally on those very large landscaped areas, or engaging the natural environment at the back. Here you can see a more of a detailed view of the building from Hazeldean. And some of the things that we did in here is we were very careful at maintaining similar materiality than the existing retirement buildings. So they look cohesive, they look part of the campus, even though they are different buildings, that different type of residents live in each of them. They are seen as a unique component of two buildings sharing a campus. Another thing that we did in order to soften the length of that elevation on the street is we broke up the heights of the building in different areas. We pushed some of the walls back to create a little bit more of a geography of elevation. It's not just one constant elevation at the same plane, at the same height. So that basically breaks up the building, makes it more residential in character and less institutional. Next. Here you are looking at a detail of that drop of area on the back side of the building. So there is a very large canopy to provide weather protection for visitors and residents for their transfers. And immediately you can see inside of the building on the fireplace lounge, there is some stone applied to the walls, and there is a wood look metal strips on the canopy. So it's a welcoming environment, protective, and you can see inside of the building as you arrive. The next. This one shows the same area, but further back, like if you were coming from one of the parking stalls, walking towards the entrance, you can see the residential area at the back where the resident bedrooms are located, and on the front, that pavilion that contains all of the common areas of the facility. So there is the fireplace lounge, there is a spiritual space, there is the beauty salon, there is some therapy areas, there is a secure outdoor gardens where the staff can let the residents go out without fearing of them leaving the site. But when the visitor comes in and takes a loved one out of the building, then there's all that opportunity to walk around the campus and engage with the city, or engage with the other building, or engage with the natural area at the back. And that is a very, very general overview of the building, the campus, how it's positioned on the site, how it relates to the city. And we are extremely proud of this building. We think this campus is a phenomenal idea. We think the synergies between the two buildings is really important, and seldom you get this amount of green space around these long-term care facilities. So we think it's going to be an incredible building for the residents.
So Councillor Gower, that is the end of our presentation. So if you wanted to say a few words or open it up to questions.
I think we'll open up to questions for anyone who is tuning in. You can use the Q&A panel to type in a question and we'll direct that to the right person. We actually got a question by email that I wanted to start off with. This is from Ray, who currently lives in the Wellings building next door. And he had a question. I'll try to paraphrase it, I guess. I think that the concern from Ray is around potential impact from traffic from the Extendicare building. He has concerns about the number of vehicles coming in and coming out on a daily basis, the capacity of the traffic lights at the entrance onto Hazeldean Road. Is there someone, Rebecca, from your team who could talk a little bit about the expected traffic impacts from the new building?
Absolutely. And thank you very much, Councillor Gower, and thank you, Ray, for the excellent question. We did have a traffic study conducted. And Peter, can I turn it over to you, Peter McConaughey and our team? Peter may be on mute.
Sorry, yeah. So the biggest time that there is traffic at a long-term care home is just at the shift changes. So typically there's 3 shift changes per day there's the morning, afternoon, and evening shift. And typically the biggest traffic impact is the change from the day shift to the afternoon shift. So there's typically about 65 cars that leave at the afternoon shift and approximately 35 that come within a half-hour period. Other than that, the traffic is pretty minimal during the day and the nighttime period.
Yeah,
Thanks,
and
Peter.
to add to Peter's, the residents do not drive, and it's mainly then at that point just visitors.
Yes, thanks, Santiago. That's what I was going to say as well. So generally the residents in our homes will not drive. And just one other piece that I'll add as well is we did have a traffic study conducted for the first site plan and then reviewed again based on this change. And they determined that there would be no change in traffic with this new site plan from the original one that was approved.
Okay, thank you. So we do have the Q&A panel. I also wanted to mention if anyone has a comment rather than a question they want to make, they can use the raise hand function in Zoom. I see there's a hand raised already. I'll come to that in just a moment. I wanted to ask, we have Kathy Ragus, who is the city planner who's reviewing this file. And Kathy, can you just situate a bit around the process for this application? It's a revision to a site plan, but can you just briefly explain what kind of approval process and timelines are involved for this kind of application?
Okay, I'll do that. And maybe before I get into process, I would just like to confirm what our position is with respect to the transportation, because the revision that we're dealing with now doesn't impact the number of units. The number of units is the same. It's 256, and the commercial component has been removed. So there really is no traffic impact from the change. But as Extendicare reps mentioned, they did do a traffic impact assessment addendum for the new application. And our transportation staff have reviewed it and they have no comments. So from our perspective, there are no transportation issues. It was all taken into account at the time of the original application. So I was going to raise my hand just to confirm that aspect, and then you asked me the other question. So I'll move into that. And in terms of process, this is considered a fairly minor site plan revision. The original site plan back in 2016 was for both the Wellings component and the Extendicare. So both buildings were part of the same site plan application, and that received site plan control approval in 2016. So the revision that we're dealing with now is fairly minor in nature in terms of the impact of the change. It's more just a resiting of the building and the change from underground to surface parking. So in terms of our different levels of site plan application, this one is considered standard. The other category is complex. So it doesn't trigger any official public notification or consultation. So that's why in some cases we put up a billboard sign. In this case, we did not. We didn't do a heads up to the community association because the criteria aren't met for public consultation. It's considered a minor, basically a technical amendment that's addressed by staff. And so it's fairly minor. We do a circulation to technical agencies that goes to external agencies such as utilities, the Conservation Authority, and we circulate to many city departments. So altogether, there's roughly 50 agencies that are circulated. So that happened about a month ago. And now the comments that I'm receiving, they're just wrapping up. So within, by the end of this week or next week, I'll be providing a comment letter to the applicant with a synopsis of all the comments from the different agencies. So typically there's some things that have to be addressed, maybe some minor revisions or questions. So that will be addressed. Once they've done that, then we prepare a staff report for, approval, and then it's approved by the manager. So site plans are not considered by planning committee, only rezonings. And in this case, they are not asking for a rezoning. So it's simply delegated to staff. It would be my manager would deal with the approval of the site plan application. So if anybody has any questions regarding process, I can elaborate on that further.
I think that's a good overview, Kathy. Thank you for that. Thank you
Okay.
for that. Okay, we have one person with the hand raised, Peter. So Peter, I'm going to allow you to talk here. And you'll have to unmute, Peter, but the floor is yours. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Councillor Gower, and thank you to Extendicare for their presentation and their team. We've been working with them over the years with the master plan, and as they noted back in 2017, getting our original approval. We were very excited about the overall master plan and the combined community, and I think it is a good concept. The concern that we have, of course, is that this is a significant change from the original plan where the focus was to put most of the parking away from residents and underground so that it was a very comfortable and safe environment for our residents from Wellings' point of view, but also for residents and family enjoying the property from the long-term care point of view. It does concern us, and we've spent a lot, of course, already at this stage building the Wellings and the central courtyard area with the pond and waterfall, and all of that was to be in a little enclave courtyard that is kind of quiet and protected for residents and family to enjoy. And now it's exposed to a 120 car parking lot. So that does concern us from our point of view, that we've started development with an approved plan that's now being changed after we've already built our side of the development. That does concern us as to how that would impact. There's over 200 residents already living in Wellings, and they moved in with the understanding that there's this quiet courtyard with a landscape pond and walkways. And this is a little different now when we have a 120 car parking lot alongside of this pond and walkways. So that would concern me a little bit. I'd just like that to be addressed at some point before it gets approved. And then also the overall property is part of a low impact design, which was one of the first in the Ottawa area for handling stormwater management, and very unique design. And I'm not sure how that's been addressed with these changes, but it appears that it would affect the way the site would relate to stormwater management. So I just like to point that out again. And the main reason that I wanted to speak, and I appreciate the chance to voice the opinion from Nautical Lands Group and Wellings, is that we've spent several years developing this property with this overall concept in mind, and having it changed at this point after we've already developed our side and promised our residents what it's going to be like. This is a significant change that we're afraid of the impact on our business and our enjoyment for our residents. And that's basically what I wanted to state. I haven't had a chance to discuss this with anybody previously, so we wanted to make sure we make that statement.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Rebecca, does anyone from your team want to address either of the main points that Peter brought up, either around the change in the parking and the landscaping that goes along with that, as well as the low impact development?
Yeah, thank you very much.
I will.
Thanks. So, okay, I'll turn it over to Peter. Go ahead.
The shared landscape amenity space hasn't changed at all. The surface parking, with discussions with the city, that have requested extensive landscaping around the perimeter of the parking. The stormwater management, we have the same engineers working on our proposal that worked on the overall concept, and they have kept all the requirements for the low impact. And it's right now being reviewed by the city engineering staff. So that's where that sits.
I would like to add to Peter that Peter's comments is that the removal of the retail and business office component should reduce the amount of trips generated by the site, and the driveway configuration is the same as it used to be before. So in terms of the cars reaching the site is the same, but less amount of cars, presumably just because the other use was removed.
Okay. So I want to thank Peter, who had the initial comment from Nautical Lands Group. And Peter, I know we have received some email correspondence from Nautical Lands Group as well that's been shared with the city planner. And I did see in the chat that Rebecca had offered to follow up with you directly. So if there's any difficulty in connecting, let me know. We'll try to make sure we link everybody together to have that offline, but it will be something that we'll be evaluating with I'll be evaluating and speaking with Kathy Ragus from a planning perspective as well. So thank you for bringing that forward today. I don't see any other questions on our Q&A panel, and I'm just going to do a quick check of our Facebook page to see if there's any questions that have come through there. I'll just reload that. I don't think so, not on Facebook today. And any other hands raised? Let me just do a double check there. Want to make sure we get everyone who wants to speak before we wrap up. All right, well, I think we're caught up on questions and so on. So, Rebecca, were there any final comments from you, your team you wanted to make before we wrap up?
I want to thank you, Councillor Gower, very much for organizing this meeting. We're very pleased to be able to speak to the community. And as we said, we are very excited about this project. I think that this is an important project for Stittsville, certainly for the seniors in long-term care. And we're really looking forward to getting moving with it and getting it started. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of the attendees. We really do take your feedback and comments to heart and appreciate you sharing your input with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for everyone who's joining you today. Thank you, Kathy Ragus, for being with us. But most of all, I want to thank all of the residents who took some time this afternoon to tune in and share thoughts and questions where you did. And if you have any other questions or concerns after we wrap up today, please email me. My email address is glenn.gower@ottawa.ca, and I'll make sure that we get an answer or pass on your comments or questions to city staff as well. And with that, we'll wrap things up. And thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Take care.